Hello, it's just David here with my weekly video. Hope you're okay. I'm recording this on a sort of very hot time. By the time kind of it's got to you, it may be a little bit cooler. Well, I hope it will be. But yeah, anyway, I hope you managed in the hot weather. Um, it's coming to the end of the school year, and a lot of people thinking about summer holidays. And I guess even for those of us who've been out of education quite a long time and don't have children necessarily in schools, because of work or whatever, we still kind of feel the rhythm. I certainly do. Of kind of, in a sense, the year starts in September and then finishes towards the end of July, and then we have our sort of break before another year starts. And so I've been thinking about the sort of changing of the seasons, and yeah, leaving a school leavers service in a few days' time, and that'll be very much about that. Particularly as at Welland St Mary's, we're saying farewell to Mary Wesley, who's been a sort of an outstanding head there for quite a while. Also before that at Walmer Green, and so as well as the children leaving. With Mary and one or two other members of staff leaving, there's a sense of sort of change in the air. And I want to just think about that because I also thought actually these videos, I know this isn't particularly going to break anybody's heart, but because generally it's just me rambling. But I started these sort of in beginning of COVID lockdown, sort of 2.5 years ago, and I've carried on doing them. I thought I'd give a break over summer, to be honest, and yeah, I might come back to them in the autumn. Let's see. I mean, I'm not under any illusion that people are sort of sitting desperately waiting to hear them. So I'll sort of draw them to a close and then see how things are in the autumn. But with all those things, I think Christians have this odd relationship with change. Churches generally often seen as places that don't particularly like change, and we've done things this way, and it's in a sense I understand that we get into a routine, a groove, and I'm certainly like that. I think I'm actually not very good at sort of coming up with new things. I mean, partly because there's quite a lot to keep going, but sometimes I think it is necessary to let go of things, and also that allows it's not necessarily the end of something. It allows new things to flourish, and of course actually because we've been forced to stop a load of things and now we're starting them up. Some of them are starting up the same, some of them are starting up differently. But again, I mean, dare I say it, after kind of a break, we're looking at starting things up. I know again, COVID cases are rising, so one sort of holds our breath. But I think September may be again another those times when we start to move back, looking at some of the things we're doing. Hopefully. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to think about that idea of change. The example I always sort of give, as a friend once told me, there was a church which was slightly awkwardly designed. One point had a heating pipe right across the central aisle, and it must be a terrible trip hazard for everybody. But what happened was that the serving party, who were the only people who actually sort of walked up the bit of the aisle, got very used to every week sort of stepping over this pipe, and because you had to sort of continually warn people and remind them, particularly if they're new, that the 4 or 5 servers and the priest were saying you must remember to step over the pipe, etc., etc. And occasionally people would trip on it. So they then installed a new heating system. Obviously, got rid of this sort of ridiculous pipe. But my friend said for me, for about 2 years, people still did this sort of exaggerated step over the non-existent pipe because that had become part of their routine. And of course, visitors to the church after that, or new people, just thought they're utterly bonkers because they couldn't understand why these people were doing sort of goose step almost when they got to, just at the front of the church. But it's a little thing that reminds us that, yeah, sometimes change is tricky, and sometimes there's a danger that we don't remember why we're doing something. We're doing it. We've always done this way. We've always stepped over this pipe that isn't there anymore. And so, yeah, I think there is a sense that we are, yeah, people perhaps need to sort of embrace good change. I say this because, I mean, one of the books I'm reading at the moment is about sort of whether there is what's called a perennial philosophy. It's an argument in Roman Catholic theology, which I don't need to go into. But it sort of goes like this, are truths in a sense always the same, or do they change over time? And of course, well, there's different sorts of truths, aren't they? I mean, 2 and 2 will always equal 4, I guess. But there's other things, very important things which change. And I think, Christianity is historical faith. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, it develops. Um, you know, there were human beings, and we get kind of the beginnings of that in the first books of the Bible, and who have this very different relationship with God. Before Abraham, and then the calling of God's nation, and so then there was Israel, and then there was the exile, and then sort of obviously Jesus came, and then various things have happened in history since then. And each of those, there are different things in a sense that are true. The world is obviously different before Jesus than it is after him. Nobody could have guessed, 50 years before Jesus was born, that all that was going to happen. But it did. Christians were a tiny persecuted minority until it became the kind of religion of the Roman Empire. But nobody could necessarily have guessed and have sort of adjusted to that in advance. So there is a sense in which things are changing, and things are developing and moving, and there's a sense in which Christians kind of need to embrace that. We don't believe in that. Some philosophers believe almost that the world is static. There's no real change. It's all all the changes are all sort of unimportant, and that there's a core of unchanging stuff. I don't think Christians believe that. I think Christians believe that actually we live in a world. The story of the Bible is that it has a beginning, a kind of middle, and if you like, several middles, and an end. It's going somewhere. It starts, it moves through history, and it finishes. It doesn't. It's not just here and that's it. It will come to an end, and then by God's good grace, we'll enter something else, the heavenly city, the New Jerusalem, the new heaven and the new earth promised in Revelation. So there is a sense of that actually we need to get used to change, because of course things are going to change, and they will always change. So I think we need to get used to that. And then also obviously the cycles, and I think part of God's preparing us for that is the cycles of the year, the seasons. That yes, there's a sort of massive picture of history, but there's a kind of yearly cycle of different seasons. There's even a daily cycle. People are now very well aware of how your body changes through the day and how that sort of changes. So there is this sense of sort of constant change, which I think is kind of preparing you for perhaps change in the future. It's lovely and warm. Sorry, I'll be slightly awkward edit there because my computer, believe it or not, ran out of disk space, which kind of I think shows my point that I've used up a whole hard disk with these videos, so I think it is time to give them a bit of a break. But yeah, I was actually coming to the end and just saying that change is part of Christianity, and so preparing ourselves, and also for good change, for good transition, I think is an important thing. Now, as I say, fine, I'm not imagining people are sort of terribly worried about sort of me coming to the end of these videos or giving them up for a while, but that idea of not thinking always we have to carry on doing things, that sometimes we can lay things down, allow new things to start, and allow change to happen, and to God to call us to a new future, I think is an important thing. So anyway, I leave you with that. Have good holidays. Thank you.